Alright, how's it going? So I had posted a video a little while ago about a topwater lure for musky and pike that I had designed and printed out, as well as used some plastisol mold making techniques to make a long tail for it. So, like this. So I had a subscriber on that video ask about putting it together, and that's something that I kind of left out of the video. So I thought I would do a quick little tutorial on putting that bait together, as well as throw up the files up on Thingiverse now, so if anybody does want to try and print it and use it, they can. Okay, I'm going to switch you over to potato vision here now, using my 720p webcam, so the screen's going to shrink a little bit, but you got to do what you got to do, right? So what we're going to need for this project are cotter pins. These are 3/32 cotter pins, and they're about 1.5 inches long. You could probably get away with 1.25 inches for these, but the most important part is the 3/32. So it's a pretty stout cotter pin, so it can hold up to some pretty good forces, but it's also relatively small, so it still fits into the chambers of the baits. I print this without any supports as well. I feel like it doesn't really need it, and it hasn't yet. We need split rings. You can find these at your local sporting goods store generally. This is an assortment pack. I have bought a bunch of them in the past off of the interwebs as well. We're going to use size 5s. You need some decent CA glue, cyanoacrylate glue, super glue, the non-fancy term. This is Bob Smith Industries. I've went over that in a couple videos as well. I really like their stuff. The Insta set is very nice to have as well. You need your tail portion that you have poured in plastisol or some other type of soft plastic prior to doing this. Then you need a good pair of snips. Actual metal snips will work the best for this. Like the small wire ones don't quite work as well. And then I like to just use a pair of kind of stunted needle nose pliers. They work really well as well, because we got to bend these cotter pins. Also, good idea, have a Sharpie to mark things with. I'm going to go in and try and find where I need to bend this. So I'm just going to bring the cotter pin up to the point where it's locked in. Not really locked in, but it's level with that side of the nose. I'm just going to do a quick mark where I want to bend it. Then I'm just going to quick cut off that much further away from it, just to have enough for that bend. Usually cuts pretty simply. Then I'm going to start to bend it at 45 degrees at the mark. So just start to bend it a little bit. I try and get the angle that I want on it, or what I think is going to be there. Then I test it to make sure it fits in. Let's see if I can get this thing to focus. Too much light. You hardly ever hear YouTubers say that, do you? Okay. So now we're just going to progress through that and do it for each one of these cutouts. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take these out and keep them in a line so I know which ones are going to what. I'm just going to hit them with a little bit of super glue. And always do that. Make sure your tip is clear before you start going. It always helps. So I'm just going to put little dabs in there, not a lot. Just enough to hold them in there for now. I'm not concerned with holding them in there forever right now. I'm just going to hold them in. So the less you handle it at this point, the better. Because there's a good chance your fingers are going to get stuck in there. And then off camera here, I'm going to spray them with some of this accelerator. I just don't want it on the desk. So now it's very, very important to remember that this part has accelerator on it. So, because if you try to put additional super glue on this now, it's gonna be an issue, right? So this is the part with accelerator. But you can see now the cotter pins are stuck in there halfway. So now what I'm gonna do is go through this one the same exact way. So we're just going to go and make these cotter pins come into the angles that we want, and then we'll tack them in here. So let's do that now. On the body itself, I've designed it to where I can have this little hole in here. So instead of fighting a 90 degree or fighting a 45 degree bend, we can just do a 90 degree bend there, which I think makes it a lot easier to deal with. So that's the only difference from the back of the lure to the front. The rest is all the same. Same process. We want the front and the back. We want these two cotter pins to be opposite of each other. Right, see how that one's orientated basically up and down to the bait? We want it to be this way. Left and right. So I have to make sure when I make the back that this cotter pin's getting bent down into the lure down. It'll make a little bit more sense in a minute. So I know that's about my mark. I'm going to bring... So before I bend it, we want these two to be together without needing to use another split ring or anything. So I'm going to thread on that other cotter pin. I'm going to try not to stretch it as much as possible. So now we have the cotter pin sitting like we were talking about before. Crossed, not the same direction. So now I'm going to take my mark I had made previously and I'm just going to do a bend down. Make that a 90 as well as I can do it anyway. 90-degree angle. Then I can slip it into this hole that's down there. And now those two will be connected once it's glued in place. So now the only one I have to do now is this middle. So what I'm going to do at the same time is when I'm gluing in these, I'm going to glue, just temporarily hold this one in to its spot with a little bit of glue as well, just so it stays there and it's easier for us to work with as we go through this. So then I'm going to put this tail down. You can see how it goes up on the top and flat on the bottom. I want flat side down. I'm going to put that there. Okay. So now we're ready to fully assemble this. So we've put the accelerator on this side already. So to make sure that we don't have any issues at this stage, we need to put the super glue on this side. So we know that we have accelerator on this side and super glue on this side. So if we were to put super glue on this, it's just going to harden right away. The CA glue is going to harden really quickly. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover every single portion of this side, and we're going to put it face down. We're going to spray this a little bit with accelerator first, then we're going to put it down and lock it in. It's the plan anyway. So I have previously done two-part lures like this, and I have used clamps to hold them. It's kind of it's all about what you want to do. Now, if you do decide to go the clamp route, I would advise not using accelerator because it is so quick. Just go ahead and use super glue without the accelerator with the clamps, and you should be fine, because then you're not worrying about the clamps themselves being in the wrong position and then it setting too quickly. So now that we have all the cotter pins in there, what we need to do is we need to add snap rings and some hooks. So I have, these are just, I want to say they're number 5 snap rings. That's all they are. And what I like to do with the snap rings, see them, and these are number 2 Gamakatsu treble hooks. They seem to work well for the size of the bait. What I like to do with split rings, which I'm sure everybody has their own way of doing it, but what I like to do with split rings is drop them constantly. I like to kind of just get a fingernail or something in there. Let's try plan B. Getting violent. Okay, I just like to split the split ring just a little bit. Obviously, be careful. If you want to use a split ring tool, it's probably better. I agree. But then I like to put the hook in first on the split ring. So now we have a situation where the split ring is around the hook, and you have a nice little gap. So now we can take our pliers in this orientation, and we can push that gap onto the cotter pin. So then the hook is going with the split ring as it's going to enter the bait. So it makes it a lot easier. So again, take your split ring tool, not a knife, it's your split ring tool. Push on your hook once you get a little bit of a gap. Once your hook is on the split ring, you can move the hook down as well on the split ring to give yourself more gap. Then go to your cotter pin, transfer the gap over, and twist your split ring around. So there you go. There's the final bait. This is printed at 100% infill, so it's like 1,800 pounds, but it's strong. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully it was somewhat entertaining, or maybe you learned a thing or two. I'm still learning everything all the time, so I always find it interesting when somebody shows me something I didn't quite do, or a different way of doing it on the interwebs. So if you did like it, please maybe consider subscribing. Love to have you aboard. I'm going to have a couple more videos coming up. This video on this bait, this lure specifically, has a video about how I designed it and how I put it together originally. Also about how to make the plastic tail and all of that. So if that's something that interests you, check it out. I'll leave a link in the description for this video. And keep your amps up and your filament dry.